Wonderful. So, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the future of tangible heritage preservation within India today.
Yes, in India we have two major bodies looking after the tangible and intangible heritage, and the national body is the Archaeological Survey of India, and we have the national museums. Both Archaeological Survey of India and the national museums are under the Ministry of Culture, Government of India, who from time to time give us directions and policies, formulate policies for all these two historical institutions to follow. This is, I'm talking on the national level. As far as conservation and preservation is concerned of this tangible heritage, the Government of India Ministry of Culture holds built heritage and antiquities under its arm. And these are the antiquities are displayed in all the 11 to 12 national museums all over India. And the apart from that, the Archaeological Survey of India has a number of museums under its wings, both site museums generally, wherever excavations take place, it is the policy to display the objects in situ, and that is followed. So, relocating objects is not advised. These antiquities are taken care by the Director of Antiquities, Archaeological Survey of India, who is also in charge of objects when they move out of the country and move into the country, apart from the Director General of the National Museum. Now, this is as far as the policies of preservation and conservation. They do have conservation branches in all these institutions, including the museums. They have laboratories, and they take care of the preservation or restoration of objects and buildings. Now, as far as the uh, conservation of these objects in museums are concerned, we follow two procedures. One is preventive and the other is curatorial. Whether we curatorial in the sense whether we take up the restoration of the object, or the preventive policies are the best. So for preventive policies in stores, we have good exhaust fans, exhaust ducts, and we follow temperatures. Temperature reading is taken. Regular upkeep, we have a separate section which of conservancy which looks after this under the supervision of the concerned keepers. So this is for preventive, and even in the galleries we have preventive systems in place. But when restoration is needed, it is usually the gallery for displayed objects. It is usually the gallery assistants who bring it to the notice of the curatorial staff, and the curatorial staff in take action in coordination with the conservation lab. So we have restorers, we have conservators, we have chemical assistants there who help in restoring these objects. In the national museums, conserving and restoring objects is not a very big challenge because we have professionals heading these units. But in the state museums, now when I come to the state level and district museums and site museums, it is a challenge because of staffing, because of lack of proper professional staff handling these objects. It is a challenge, and at that during challenging phases of work, they try to outsource professionals to help. And as far as if I talk specifically about a case study of Andhra Pradesh, before it was bifurcated, we had excellent staff, and though not enough, good staff, but not enough because we have to take care of metal objects, we have to take care of stone, we have to take care of delicate, fragile objects like ivory, glass, all that have to be taken care of. So these experts are unavailable pertaining to particular media. So that would be more helpful if studies, if universities open up studies on. We do have the National Museum Institute, which has a conservation section, where student departments where students go and learn. But if we could have specific professionals for specific media, that would be really good. That is a challenge for inorganic and organic objects. Yeah. Because most of our miniatures organic, most of our other decorative arts organic. So you have to we need to look into this.
Yeah. Thank you. You've answered both of my questions in one, actually, the challenges and the future hopes, which I see as being wanting to showcase or support more of that education for restoration preservation. So thank you for sharing that. And then my next question is pertaining to the significance of this museum proposal. So we're proposing the Nizam British Museum, and I'd love your thoughts on showcasing this within the British residency area.
Yes, I have seen your presentation. It's quite an interesting one. You are making an already available historical heritage building and carving out spaces for depicting the Asafja dynasty and the English colonial rule and their interaction between them. That's a very interesting concept. We do have city galleries, like in Ahmedabad, we have in Calcutta Victoria Memorial, which is a national museum. We have the Kolkata's gallery there, where we depict, not only the history of the city, the growth of the city, but the visits from amateur artists and what they have left behind. There is a fantastic record of, both documents and visual documents, which helped to create that gallery. I was the research assistant for that gallery. It was set up almost in 1990 to celebrate, the third centenary of Calcutta. And it was opened by none other than Professor Nurul Hassan, who was a great educationist. He was the education minister at the center at that time. So that was a very interesting gallery we had in 1990s. This concept of city gallery, I think now you are carrying it to this British residency, reusing that space, and hopefully it will be a concept well accepted, because you will be talking about the historic space. You will be talking about what was this part of the city during the Nizam's times, how the Nizams granted this piece of land to the British to construct the British residency, how they granted permission, and how the British residents, after the capital was shifted from Aurangabad to Hyderabad, a few years later, they started occupying it and it became their center of business. Then the most important, I think, you should highlight the romantic stories, the historical stories, and along with the importance of the architecture. You do know that when the British constructed the residency, it was a Palladian style of architecture. That was a style adopted by the British in all their colonies. So whatever was the architectural language or style back home for them, they implemented it in their colonies. So you have the British residency, which is now partly reused for a university, and your museum will be an addition to it for educating the public, giving them, a kind of a relaxation place, because there's a lot of garden space there. You can take them for garden walks. And similarly, another Palladian construction or architecture with the Athenian arch exists in Calcutta, which is used as the town hall, in Bombay, which is used as the Asiatic Society Center. And I must say, you are from Harvard, isn't it? This Palladian architecture reminds me of your main office, central office in Harvard. It is pillared with Athenian arch,
Yes.
isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So a Harvardian coming down to work in another Palladian architectural heritage site is a coincidence, maybe, but well chosen, because this will highlight not only the importance of what the British actually did here, because this particular British residency was the center also for the first war of Indian independence. One of the Nizam's sons also, he rebelled and he was jailed in the Golconda fort. So, though it was meant to accommodate the residents, yet it became a very important center for the first war of national independence, coined by the European historians as the revolt of 1857 or the rebellion of 1857. From the Indian historical point of view, it was our first struggle for freedom.
Thank you so much. This is really great to reflect on, especially coming towards the end of my internship and pulling everything together. So, kind of drawing off of this, the residency building itself, the idea of adaptive reuse. Would you say that this is a similar concept to creating a museum or interpretation center or cultural center within this historic monument? Is it similar to site museums, or is there a distinction that you'd make there?
Okay, let me begin with the earliest museum, which Curzon designed for his empress, Queen Victoria. So when he built this Victoria Memorial, it was designed to showcase the British Raj. It was their Vallala of their rule here. And when another Victoria Jubilee Museum was set up in Vijayawada, very close to us, 4 hours drive from Hyderabad, that also has been, that was a memorial, another memorial in South, but that also has been reused now to showcase our antiquities. It is a state museum, it is a district museum under the state government of Andhra Pradesh. Now, similarly, a lot of buildings have been reused. The residency in Lucknow, the first war of freedom struggle, which was fought in 1857 by Indians, which started right in north of India and traveled down to Lucknow and Delhi and then to Deccan, Hyderabad. That residency has also been converted to a museum now. So this conversion and reuse and readapting historical sites for showcasing our antiquities and our histories is quite a common phenomena in India and abroad also. Because the buildings carried a certain value by themselves. And then the architecture also was so beautiful. So a visitor could enjoy both the architecture, the style, understand the style, and see the museum. And it depends upon the visitor. If it's a student, it's kind of different kind of visitors coming in with different profiles, whether they want to research further, whether they want to come back. So the success of any museum depends on its ability to communicate.
That's really great. Thank you. And one more question, or maybe I might have one extra, but I wanted to ask your thoughts about sharing challenging histories throughout the museum. What have been ways that you've seen it done successfully as well?
I think that's a very interesting way of moving forward. We should understand our past. These challenging histories have to be highlighted. We should be able to put our opinion. Those who have been colonized, especially, their opinion have to be highlighted. We were never heard. We were never heard. If you see the Jallianwala Bagh Museum opened by our Prime Minister, Modi ji, you can make out. So every historical site is now coming up with with not so new as in history, but with historical perspective from the Indian point of view. All the books, I think there's a major need to change syllabuses in schools also. Even in Red Fort, they have opened a Freedom Struggle Museum, telling the Indian story, which has always gone, passed and ignored public opinion. I think public opinion is very important to know our rights, to understand our duties.
Thank you. And then an extra question: what do you have to say for students who want to do what you're doing, the type of work that you're doing with museums?
I was involved both in built heritage and antiquities and tangible and intangible, because I've served as the director of archaeology museums, I've served as a director of culture, I've served as additional commissioner of heritage for the Greater Hyderabad Municipal Corporation, which gave me a chance to understand the landscape of a city and the heritage. Sometimes these built heritage in cities are challenged because of urbanization and other factors. But this kind of exposure, and finally, I was also the curator of Salarjung Museum. So it gave me a bird's eye view of the entire field of heritage and helped me to understand that the most important factor is raising the heritage awareness amongst students, amongst the young adults. If you raise this level of understanding heritage, we'll have better promoters of heritage and preservers, because heritage also suffers from human vandalism apart from natural factors. So I think it's very important, yes, to raise the heritage awareness for even the visitors who are visiting museums and sites, so that they don't leave their hearts and arrows and names on public monuments.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Those are all of my questions, and I have so much I can share with people.
I'm so glad. Yeah, I think
you.
this should be shared. People should become aware that you can never drive. It's like, driving a car. To drive a car forward, you need to look into the rear view mirror. Right?
Yeah.
You have to look into the rear view mirror. You have to look at the side mirrors. Then it helps you to navigate. So history and heritage are your rear view mirrors, important to navigate the future.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much.
Most welcome.